guys in the back of the room, the QRSs are the needle badly tuned, but here's a QRS interval, 300, 150, 175. But here's another one here. See that? 300, 150, 145. 300, 150, 45. 300, 150, 100, shift 75. There's two different rates predominating. Rate axis, that's the QRS and it's up. That's the QRS and it's up. I'm sorry, the needle is poorly tuned. Normal axis. How about conduction intervals? See how if you just try to do the things you're supposed to do, even failing is something. Go to 1, go to 2. Here's a where's a QRS? Here's a QRS. PP, you have an oscillating baseline. Anyone have a sense of what this might be so far? Because rhythm is our next step. Atrial flutter. This person's an atrial flutter. Which in many ways eliminates the rest of it. There's no proper P wave to analyze for hypertrophy. You're not going to really pick up left ventricular or right ventricular changes very easily, and the T wave, QT, the rest of that car got blown out of the water because the person's in atrial fib. Atrial flutter, which is rare in fibrillation. So interesting, this guy signed up because he'd gone at altitude. He was a long-term smoker. He quit maybe 5 years ago, but he'd already damaged his lungs fairly well. Went up to altitude, had real problems at altitude, just going to Tahoe. He kind of couldn't carry the bag in to the hotel room at all. And this is his electrocardiogram before he has his exercise test. So does he need an exercise test? No, he needs treatment for his atrial flutter first. We may do an exercise test in the future. But there's two reasons for that. First off, his hemodynamics during exercise are going to be sucky. What you're going to discover when you do an exercise test is he's an atrial flutter. You already know that. So why not fix that first? The other is, how are you going to use ST segment depression as an indicator of ischemia on this thing? You can't. And so that's one of the things I like about exercise testing is you go until you encounter the first undiagnosed or untreated disease, and then you stop and treat that. Bring them back later. You doing all right? You're seeing how the systems kind of helps you? No. The atrial flutter, based on rates of 140 and 70, and pronounced flutter waves in 2 and ADF. Great. What's this? Analyze through the rhythm step which of the conduction intervals is abnormal. Well, that's a hint. So it looks like an EKG, 1, 2, 3, R, L, F. R is down, down, and down. Down, down, biphasic, so it looks like it was done properly. Someone thinks the rate is 78, but we never take anyone else's opinion. 300, 150, 100, 75, shift, yeah, 78, I'll take it. The axis is normal. Now we're supposed to measure conduction intervals, right? So the P R interval looks normal to me. Yeah, it's less than a big box. It's about 3 or 4. Then the QRS, what about the QRS? Yeah, be careful, you're going to trick yourself and suffer badly. It's wide. The most important thing is it's wide. Wide. What is a wide QRS that always has a P wave in front of it? Is that a ventricular beat? Is that coming from the ventricle ectopically? No, it's a bone branch quad. Now I'll show why I jumped on Ignacio about that. The only place that bunny ears and shoulders means anything is two leads. Here and here, nowhere else. No, no, no. You residents do it. I saw bunny ears. I don't care. So delay is what indicates the presence of the bundle branch block. So we have, everything is normal about this, but we appear to have a right bundle branch block, but Ignacio, you're quite right. The next question becomes, what side? Because a right bundle branch block is trivial, and a left bundle branch block is serious. So let's QRS width, 3 little boxes, defines complete bundle branch block. This is a left bundle. I'm going to show you how I know. You ready? So despite the bunny ears, the left bundle, because you look here and nowhere else. So let me remind you what normal progression across the precordium looks like. Here's V1. You have a small septal R wave and a deep S wave. The septal R wave gets bigger and bigger, and usually by V4, you should become R predominant. So this grows and the S wave shrinks, and by V4 it should flip in dominance. And then at the end, we get over here to V6, you have a small septal Q wave, the same phenomenon as that, viewed from the other side. Small septal Q wave and a big old snoot full of left ventricle coming in your electric. Is that all okay? Okay, so in a bundle branch block, in a right bundle, you see the change over the right side. So look at V1 in a right bundle, and Ignacio is absolutely right. You do see bunny ears in V1. And what's happening here is you have a normal septal ignition. Then you have some downward going energy, which is the left ventricle. In a right bundle branch block, guess what the last part to trigger in the ventricle is? In a right bundle branch block, what's the last thing to ignite? The right ventricle. And so you have a second impulse of upwardness coming at you, creating the second bunny ear. That's the right ventricle. So the first part of this is normal. The second part is slow. Now in a left bundle branch block, you can do it the same way. First off, the septum tends to not ignite properly because the left bundle gives off a lot of pieces to get the septum to go off, so you don't have a Q wave. The first part of this is quite fast, and then it just stalls out. And what that is that cell-to-cell conduction coming across the left side of the heart in a slow manner, because the Purkinje cells that would normally bring it across fast are gone. So, left bundle gives left bundle branches long on the left. It shows a shouldering. Right bundle branch gives rabbit ears on the right. Is that okay? Well, let's go back and look at this one again. So you have to ignore all these. You just have to. If you look here, do you see rabbit ears here in V1? No. Look down here at V6. Do you see a shouldering or a slow second impulse to the left? Yeah, that's the left bundle. Does that make sense? Is that better? I waited a long time to do that because everybody tries to use the pattern without the first step is to measure the width. If there's no delay, you can have these up the wazoo if it's fast. And it is not a disease, and you do not want to call it as a disease. People will get their insurance rated and other bad things. They will be forbidden to fly their airplane. And you don't want to deprive them of that if they're normal. So you've got to have a delay first. Once you have the delay, then you look for these two patterns. As we've mentioned before, a right bundle branch block is almost trivial. You can take 1,000 of those people and they'll be alive decades. You can't detect that there's some sort of problem. People with left bundle branch block, take 1,000 of those people, a third of them are gone in a decade. They have serious organic. So, big difference in prognosis. All okay? Be brave, we're getting there. Time's a minute. No, we're fine. Ha-ha! Try this one. So, does this seem to be an EKG? Labeled as such. Is AVR down, 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 down? Yes, it is. Okay, we're going to try to, bless you. Let's get her 8. Ready? 300, 150, 175, 60, 50, and that lines up. You even push it a little, so it's like 51 or 52 is the heart rate. Do you have diagnosis already? Bradycardia. How about the axis? The axis is normal. It's about two-thirds towards F and 1/3 towards 1, so its axis is about 60. Conduction intervals. Once again, if you didn't, at least maybe you guys are better than me, but if I didn't measure that conduction interval, I never would have noticed there's first degree AV block. There's first degree AV block. The QRS, on the other hand, is done in 2.5 boxes. Maybe, see if I can measure it somewhere else legitimately. See, it depends on whether you take this little upswing right there as part. I guess we do. That little upswing is part of the QRS, and that makes it, just a little more than 2.5 boxes. This is, I can't remember, there's several of you who have an incomplete right bundle, or an incomplete bundle. You might, if you were very focused, call this an incomplete right bundle. Remember, if it was an incomplete right, you'd see a second upward. See that attempt at coming upward there? So it doesn't have the full configuration. It meets duration requirements, but not shape requirements. So it's, I sometimes call this a right bundle trying to happen. Take up their training a little bit. Rhythm is our next step. You ready for rhythm? P, QRS, T. P, QRS, T. Oh, look, you. Oh, that's fun. P, QRS, T. P, QRS, T. P, QRS, T. So it seems to be a normal, can't say normal sinus rhythm. I could say it's a sinus bradycardia. Everyone with me so far? We've made it through rhythm. Next comes, what do we call it? Hypertrophy. Look up here in lead 1. You see that P wave? Again, that P wave is kind of long. None of the other ones are super long. I'm not sure I want to call it left atrial enlargement. I only got one lead, and it's not your typical lead. There's a suggestion of a notch there. Again, I'm getting a sense this is someone athletic. They're right on the edge for certain things that imply either slowness of heart or bigness of heart. That's what athletes do. So that was the atrial. Do they have right ventricular enlargement? No. Do they have left ventricular enlargement? Well, we take the deepest, so this without the tip, so that, and onto it we add that, and count 1, 2, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. They meet Scott's voltage criteria for left ventricular enlargement. Everyone tracking so far? In terms of ischemia, see how this is a really good example of normal Q waves. They touch each other. The down and the upgoing sides touch each other, whether they're on the right side or the left. The T wave is upside down in V1 in AVR and almost upside down in lead 3. Is that okay, Kelly? Yes, those are the only 3 leads that can be upside down. It must be upright everywhere, where else? And it is. We don't want to neglect these. See that little penny hump, that little hump right there? Right on this, right over V2 and V3, which is where the septum is. These are U waves, and that reflects the Purkinje cell repolarization. So does anyone have a sense of who this is when you add all this up? This is a preseason evaluation of a Sacramento King. Big, slow hearts. So what did I find here? Bradycardia, first or second breathing block, incomplete right bundle branch block, signs of left atrial or left ventricular enlargement, early repolarization. I didn't even note that. Shame on me, but you can see, I'm so used to seeing it, I kind of forget after a while that this person has those swooped up ST segments. And U-waves. Yeah, the second one came. Used to do the preseason evaluations for like 15 years. Everyone doing okay? You're starting to see how it works? We have one more of these, one that will change. Yeah, let's do one more, and then we'll change speed. We'll start talking about exercise. Okay, does this seem to be an electrocardiogram? Yes, the QRS, the needle isn't tuned very well, but that's the QRS. See that little dot is the top. Is AVR down, down, and down? Down, 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 down? Yes. Is the axis normal? Yes. The conduction intervals, 4 boxes, 4 boxes. And part of that, one good thing about the needle being tuned so bad is you can tell by how hard it is to see the QRSs that they're fast and normal. So you got normal QRS. Next is rhythm. P, QRS, T, P, QRS, T, P, QRS, T. Did we do great? I beg your pardon. 300, 150, 100. Huh, we must be excited. 300, 150, 100. So at the upper limit of normal, a borderline sinus tachycardia. True? All right. Let's see, what else? Hypertrophy. The P waves are acceptable. Is the R greater than S in V1? No. Do you have enough voltage in V there, plus then no? Okay, so on to ischemia. Do you see big Q waves? Do you see ST, T wave, ultrate? No. So I don't see any evidence of ischemia. Look at this lovely blood pressure. 116, 84 is a little high. It's a 50-year-old female who says when she works out at her club, she feels her chest dancing and pounding. 2 points about this. Normal is the hardest EKG you'll ever do because you have to go through every step and you keep not finding stuff. Correct? Right? The atrial flutter, we were done by the time we got to measure the PR interval. So just remember that. The longer it goes, the more likely it is in normal. And then the second is, this is a normal electrocardiogram except for some anxiety about starting an exercise test. That's why heart is. So, is having a normal electrocardiogram at rest enough to explain what's going on in the club? No. And that's really important to do. You can't tell you how often I see at the primary care level, someone goes in to their doc and says, doc, I'm having this sensation. The doc does a resting electrocardiogram and says, well, everything looks normal to me. It's like looking for the keys you lost in your bedroom. It's like looking for them under a streetlight because the light's better there. It doesn't mean the keys are not lost in your bedroom. You're looking in the wrong place. So now we start to do her exercise test. And this is the second part of this lecture, which is to talk about what should happen when we start to exercise and what should happen. So she starts to exercise. Everyone see what's going on up there? Turn on the light to keep you awake. It's not. P QRST, P QRST, Golonga. P QRST, P QRST, Golonga. Oh, it's easier for you guys to see down here. P QRST, P QRST, Golonga. What are these? Now, it's not a bundle branch block because there's no P wave in front of it, and it comes and goes. Bundle branch blocks are permanent conditions that tend to stay. So these are PVCs. Notice how they're premature compared to the background rhythm. These are early. Why? What would you call this particular pattern where you've got 2 normals and a fat? 2 normals. Close. One more. Trigeminy, every third. You're right, it's every third. 2 normals and a weird. Good. So this is okay. I mean, it's not what you hope for when you apply exercise stress. A lot of times these will suppress as you rev up the SA node going faster than what this can achieve. By the way, one could predict how fast this focus potentially is by measuring a heart rate on it. So see this? 300, 150. This is about 187 if it starts to string together. So we turn up the workload, begin to walk on treadmill. Very light work. Now what do you see? More than 3 in a row is, this is ventricular tachycardia. And if you measure the rate, you'll feel so smart because it's 300, 150, back at 2 boxes, 187. So apparently this focus, whatever it is highly sensitive to epinephrine and is capable of establishing its own ectopic control. Does everyone understand why she feels funny feelings when she works out in the gym now? As it turns out, VTAC normally indicates serious heart disease. Occasionally, I think a few of you in office hours I talked about, sometimes you have a sinoatrial wannabe. It's usually on the right ventricular outflow tract, right very close to where the sinoatrial node is, and sort of like another population of cells started down the developmental process. And so it expressed more adrenergic receptors than it ought to. So this is actually a fairly rare condition. I've only seen 2 of these in my entire career. It's called normal heart VTAC or right ventricular outflow tract VTAC. You can go ablate this and cure it completely. Or you can take adrenergic blocking medicines and shut this one up without greatly affecting the natural pathway. Make sense? Just like you should. So, normal at rest was this person, deeply abnormal during exercise. By the way, notice that arrhythmias do not mean ischemia. Arrhythmias are their own thing. They can be due to ischemia. They can also be due to several other things. So when we see this, we don't say this test is positive. Positive only refers to ST depression as an indicator of ischemia in the coronaries.
So this VTAC report from the non-VTAC?
Oh, that took, good for you. That took extensive further evaluation. You had to get a 12 lead, she had to go to the electrocardiology lab, that's good for you. There's many more steps beyond that. But part of the hint would be, Ignacio, is that she's been having this for 6 months and it's not fallen over and regularly hits heart rates of 185 in her gym class. So whatever it is, it seems to be self-suppressing and it's almost responding appropriately to the sympathetic drive. So that would be your own hint. It's good for you. Everyone okay down there so far? Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about exercise testing since you're doing it. The two most common problems I see in exercise testing, things that do not have to do with the patient, they have to do with the doing of the test. The first one is insufficient intensity. The patient has to achieve 85% of their age-predicted heart rate in order to push a coronary lesion to reveal itself. I actually like to do the test to true maximum as you've seen, but most cardiologists, that hurts their existential angst becomes too great and they can't go. I like to wander in the wilds, but you must at least get the patient. If you do not get them to that heart rate, all you can say is this test is indeterminate for ischemia due to insufficient effort. Then the other thing is poor ECG quality. So take a look at this ECG. At least they claim this is an ECG. I walked in, the grad student was doing, this is a grad student who's doing a research project. They're doing like an hour of exercise. And this is what they kept saying, the heart rate, the heart rate on the computer is all bouncing all over the place. Oh, come on, how is the computer going to know what this is? Fast. Right? And so, to their horror, the graduate students' horror, I ripped off all the leads and went back to exactly what I was talking to you guys in the lab. I got an alcohol pad, I wiped off the skin, I fanned it dry, I reapplied the electrodes. This is the same subject during the same workload. See? So it matters. That, you know, and for this person it was research, so she just wanted the heart rate for data. But if you were trying to decide whether grandpa was going to die of an infarction, I would way rather use this electrocardiogram than whatever that is. Make sense? Good. So work on that today. And normal responses to exercise. They're pretty straightforward. Normal EKG response to progressive exercise. P, QRST, P, QRST, P, QRST. We are diastole dominant when we're at rest. This person has a heart rate of 85. As they start the exercise test, by the second minute, their heart rate is actually dropped. This is the only time that heart rate should go down in the exposure to work. It's a memory phenomenon, psychology. You've given them an outlet for their anxiety. You've taken anxiety is a worry about, a diffuse worry about the unknown future. Now you've given them something to chew on, and their anxiety basically goes away because they say, oh, I'm being asked to do this, and I can't. And this is the only time you'll see heart rate drop. You apply more work, and what you start to see is, as we mentioned before, the T and the P waves start to fuse into a Bactrian camel, the two-humped camel of Asia. The R to R spikes become closer together. Right? So you go from normal sinus rhythm, which is what this is, to a sinus tachycardia. The regularity, let me emphasize again, the atomic clock regularity of sinus tach. These things will not vary by more than a tenth of a millisecond. I mean, a tenth. Whatever I'm trying to say. They don't vary. And then, as you get to high intensity work, this is near maximum for this person, you start to have heart rates close to the age predicted maximum. The T and P wave may actually fuse so close it becomes difficult to tell which is which. And notice can you see the coarsening of the baseline? The person is thrashing. You've seen this now in lab. The person is working as hard as they can, they're gripping the handlebars or on a treadmill, they're swinging their arms. And you guys will often, I'm sure, wonder, how do we know they're safe? Well, there's two ways we know they're safe. If they're making narrow spikes that are perfectly spaced, there is nothing that can kill them in the short term, 30 seconds. Could they be ischemic? Yeah, but it's really hard to tell at this maximum, and that's why, let's see, we're going to go one more. The baseline progressively coarsens and wavers due to sweating, breathing, and muscular effort. So here we are near max. It's the same subject. Notice they throw a PVC, TPQRS, 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 TPQRS Gawanga, and notice it goes up and down opposites. This is nothing to be frightened of. Has anyone done this yet in the lab? I like to see some ectopy at maximum work. It tells you they're trying hard. That won't happen unless you bathe the heart in maximal epinephrine. They're not going to lose control. Right? And then look at this baseline. See how unreadable it is? This is the point I was about to make. And so watch what you do. You drop the workload, you ask them to take their hands off the handlebar or whatever. This is 30 seconds, same person. The heart rate is still well above 180, and yet you have a perfect electrocardiogram where if you want to judge the ST segment, if you want to measure the height of the T wave, you can do it. So in many ways, the immediate post-exercise 12 lead is the reason you do the test. You want a high rate pressure product, and you want a clean electrocardiogram. Okay? Making sense? All right. So I want to remind you that, a positive or negative test is defined by the ST segment only. But you get a lot of other information. Our person where we triggered VTAC with exercise, that's an abnormal test. Exercise should not trigger VTAC. And then you start to pursue different kinds of disease than coronary disease. So you always look at more things. In a normal person, you'll see the heart rate progressively rise with each workload. If they are honest people, their rating of exertion will also continuously rise. Their blood pressure, the diastolic pressure will change a little, but the systolic pressure will rise in response to the work and then descend as the workload is relieved. So that's normal. And the last, I think this is the last case where a young, this is a rower from UC Berkeley. If you look at his resting blood pressure, 148/90, voltage criteria for LVH, strain pattern, these blood pressures are after 20 minutes of supine rest. He's got a fantastic work capacity, but look at his blood pressures during exercise. See, that's just not right. And so he had, you know, young people do not often have hypertension, but when we do our athletic screening for all the intercollegiate athletes on campus, we normally find about 2 out of 2,000 people who actually are like this. They have an early onset high blood pressure and they need to treat it if they want to have a normal lifespan. Being athletic does not relieve them from the dangers of that disease.
Does that affect your work output in any way?
Yeah, remember their afterload is super high. And so imagine how much better an athlete they'd be if you lowered this down and the heart could actually have a greater cardiac output. Absolutely. Yeah, so this is not good for their health and it's not good for their performance. And the great problem is people look at these, you know, muscular, and they try to talk their way away from it. It's like, no, the risk of the disease is the same. Okay, does that kind of help? Very good. Yeah, see how there's no new information? Great. Enjoy your life.